the Condit family established in Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma, that area. So in 1966, my great-grandfather, Adrian, who is still a Free Will Baptist minister, moved here to minister at a church that still stands in series on Central Avenue, where I attend and my family does, Village Chapel. So that spot was open, and he moved and brought the whole family with him. And then in '67, my father Chad was born from my grandparents Gary and Carolyn. So Chad was born in Tulsa, moved here when he was 3-4 months old. So he was raised here. And then in 1972, my grandfather decided he didn't like where the country was going, mainly with the Vietnam War. That was his main concern. He worked in an armory factory where they made the bombs. And he tells this story that he was in the factory with a father of a soldier that was over in Vietnam. And the dad says, well, I don't know if I want the war to end, even though his son's in the military, because he'll lose his job. And that drove my grandfather to run for council and try to make a change, try to make a difference. And then a few years down the road, now this is when the city could not elect the mayor. They only elected the council, and then the council elected the mayor. So the council, a few years down the road, mind you, he's 26, they elect him mayor. So he's the youngest mayor, I believe, still in series history. And then a few years later, runs for supervisor of, which now would be District 5, Ceres, Patterson area, West Side. And then 1982, decides to run for state assembly. John Thurman, a little history if you know who John Thurman is, his old seat, his old state assembly seat, after he retires, my grandfather runs, wins that seat. And then till about 88, he gets involved with a little group in Sacramento. They call themselves the Gang of Five. And they cause a little ruckus in Sacramento. And then in 89, there's a special election for the congressional seat. Tony Coelho is stepping down, and my grandfather runs. And that's history. So.
Well, let's bring it on down a generation or two. Your dad ran for Congress District 10.
My dad did run.
This last election cycle.
Yeah, he ran. And then my aunt married now Assemblyman Adam Gray, and now my brother works for him.
And your mom works for Anthony Cannella?
Yes, she does. She's a field rep.
And you're involved with the Young Democrats?
I am.
You know, I've often heard it said, that the Condits are the Kennedys of Ceres. Not just Ceres, but the Central Valley. Do you ever see your family in that light?
I don't know. The Kennedys are too high up. I wouldn't say that at all. I wouldn't compare us to the Kennedys at all. But they had a strong line of public service, and we too instill that public service within ourselves, and we feel that there's changes in this country that needs to be made, and I know the Kennedys have felt that way. So if you want to make that comparison, but a lot of families feel like that.
Tell us a little bit about the Young Democrats of Stanislaus County. You are the political consultant?
Director.
Director.
I'm their political director. I deal with all their political affairs, the political campaigns that go on throughout Stanislaus County, and all that. So.
What does that entail?
That entails me talking to political candidates, seeing if we could endorse them, seeing what their issues are, what they stand for, just basic stuff.
Do you kind of vet the candidates?
I do a little bit. Well, like in the Modesto City Council races that are going on, I've done some vetting there. I've watched your show. It's helped me a little bit. I know we got 3 races going on. We got District 5, District 2, and District 4, right?
Yes.
And I know there's one Democrat named Tony Madrigal running in District 2. And I know there's one Democrat named Jenny Ketchum-Kanoyer running in District 5. And you have Ricky McGill and Juan Malgoza, 2 Democrats in District 4.
And what do you do when you vet those candidates? Do you sit down and talk with them one-on-one, or do you have a forum? In what type of setting do you talk to them?
We'd bring them to a meeting, and they just give us a little spiel, and then I'd have a one-on-one with them just to see if they're really telling the truth.
And how do you tell?
You can always tell.
So tell us how you can tell. Because we have an enormous viewership that will be voting soon, and they need to know who is sitting here in this chair that's trustworthy.
Well, if a candidate can look you in the eye and sincerely tell you that there's something wrong in their community, and he gives you a common sense solution to fix it, you should know he's telling the truth. And you should be able to research that problem and say, man, he is telling the truth. He is right on.
What do you think about candidates who are asked a direct question and their eyes are averted and they don't really answer it? Would that be the opposite? Or...
You mean they give a political answer?
Well, you said it, not me.
Well, that happens sometimes, and if you don't get a straight answer, you gotta live with what you got. And what if the other guy doesn't give you a straight answer?
Well, that's
then
what
they
I'm
both
asking.
then
Yeah.
they both are just calling a bluff there. So you don't really know which way to go.
How do we research someone? Like I said, we do have the election coming up, and we have a lot of people to choose from. Not just the Modesto City Council race, but we have school board, we have Modesto Irrigation District. I looked at the ballot, and there are dozens of positions to be filled. So how do we, the general population, go out and talk to that person? Do we look on a master website someplace, or do we read what's in the Bee? Do we attend forums? How do we...
And the Bee's always a good place to start, isn't it? But you could go to Stand Vote. It's a website, and that'll give you a rundown of a bunch of candidates that are running or people that are already elected to TID, MID, and so that should help you out there. And then you could just type in their name online, see if they have a Facebook or a web page, and just research them. Most of them have their number on there, and the ones that do are usually successful. It's a good thing to always have stay in contact with your voter. If you're not in contact with your voter, well, that's your first mistake right there. I mean, that was always a very key part of my grandfather, and that's why he was so well liked in this area, is because he was always in personal contact. You could always go knock on his door, even when he was congressman in D.C. He still lived here. You know, he'd fly back during the weekends to be here. He wouldn't stay in D.C. He was always connected to the people of Stanislaus, Merced, and San Joaquin Valley.
Well, I thank you for joining us this evening. Before you go, tell us the one question that we need to ask a candidate.
Well, the one question that you should ask a candidate is, how bad do you really want this job? And do you think you could handle it?
That's very good. Thanks, Couper.
Thank you, Ms.
I'll
Mason.
talk to you soon.